You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. At least for now, Denny Blaine beach visitors may have to suit up. Yesterday, a King County judge ordered the city of Seattle to come up with a plan to end, quote, nudity as constituted at the park. Denny Blaine has been the city's most well-known nude beach for decades and is a beloved LGBTQ plus community gathering space. The order follows a series of attempts by neighbors of the park to end nudity at Denny Blaine, and it's a move supporters of the nude beach say would be a, quote, sanitization of queer spaces in an increasingly gentrified city. Seattle Times reporter David Kroman has been following the story, and he joins me now. Hey, David, and let's just launch right into it. This order from King County Superior Court Judge Samuel Chung is the result of a lawsuit. What's been going on here? What are the residents arguing in this lawsuit?
The main argument that the residents are making is basically this park is a public nuisance. And, finding the line between inconvenience and public nuisance is a little difficult, but that's what this lawsuit is trying to do. They're saying that basically it's impossible to coexist with this park as it is. They have not made nudity specifically like an explicit part of their argument, but they have been saying that, there have been other sort of forms of indecent behavior that have been happening in this park. They talk about public sex, public masturbation, drug use. And they're saying that, the nudity that is inherent at this park sort of attracts that behavior, and that the city of Seattle is not doing anything to crack down on it. And so therefore it is illegal. It is basically a legal public nuisance. And so they asked this judge, they sued the city of Seattle. And then as part of that case have asked this judge for an injunction to close the park. He didn't do that, but as you said, he did order the city of Seattle to not only crack down on the kind of public nuisance behavior, but to end nudity there totally, which I think was a surprise to both parties involved that he went that far.
Because nudity is legal technically in Washington state.
Nudity is legal unless it is, quote, causing an affront or alarm. Again, sort of like the public nuisance piece, finding the line between acceptable nudity and the kind of nudity that causes alarm is squishy and a little difficult. But, as it was has largely presented at Denny Blaine Park, the city has explicitly endorsed nudity, and in its arguments in this case said, we think keeping this park a nude park is in the public interest. So they are saying not only are we okay with it, but we actually think it's important that this park stay a nude park. But again, the judge ended up kind of lumping nudity along with these other acts of public indecency. And so the city has to come up with a plan for getting rid of all of it.
And this is not the first attempt to regulate or ban nudity or what's happening at Denny Blaine, right? There was the whole saga with the neighborhood group who was trying to fund a play structure, basically a playground at the park, which would have made this a place that kids congregate and then therefore implicitly ban nudity at the park. There was a big public outcry. What are you hearing from supporters of nudity at the park for this phase of the story?
Yeah, the immediate reaction is surprise. I should say first that supporters of this park don't deny that there is some inappropriate behavior happening there, including public masturbation and public sex.
There's been video of at least, some of these acts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty well documented. There's video, there's police reports, and they agree, this is a problem that we would like to solve. This is making it difficult for us to enjoy this park as well. But they're saying that, in going after the park in the way that they are, these neighbors are sort of leaning on this illegal activity as a means to kind of Trojan horse their way into banning nudity altogether at this park. And as you mentioned, they can kind of point back to this earlier sort of more kind of behind closed doors attempt to get rid of nudity when there was the offer to fund from one of the neighbors this playground there that would have basically de facto banned nudity there. And so, the supporters of this park are saying, look, we're here, we're ready to work with you if we want to try and clean this up. But the neighbors have said, we've tried, we've had a lot of conversations with the city, we don't think it's going anywhere. And so we think it's time to bring this before a court and shut this down for good.
It wasn't that long ago now, David, that Police Chief Sean Barnes was apologizing to the LGBTQ plus community because some officers had basically kind of harassed people at Denny Blaine and made them feel uncomfortable. at the nude beach. Now, what happens? Will officers be patrolling to make sure people put on their swimsuits?
We don't know that yet. The judge gave a 2-week timeline to the city of Seattle to come up with a plan for, quote, abatement of this issue. I think as you alluded to before, there is some question about what form of nudity is being banned here. The judge from the bench, not in his order, but from the bench said he's talking about nudity as constituted. So does that mean nudity totally? Does that mean the sort of nudity that people are associating with kind of more illegal activity? We're unclear on that. And so I think we have to wait until the city of Seattle comes back in a couple of weeks with its plan for abatement to understand just how banned nudity is. Are we talking can you take your top off, or just, what level of nudity are we talking here? We don't know. And so then once we do know that, we'll have a better sense of what enforcement will look like.
Yeah, depending on what nudity is constituted means. And just as you also mentioned, this state law in general, if nudity presents an affront to the public, it just strikes me as all so difficult because an affront as constituted, it feels like it's in the eye of the beholder. And the community members who say this is an important LGBTQ plus space, have one position of this. They're saying they also want to crack down on the activity that's outside of, the pro-social activity like the masturbation and stuff. But the neighbors are continuing to pursue this. Anything else you want to add just in the last 30 seconds here, David?
Yeah, I mean, the neighbors, I heard from the neighbors after the court hearing, and they were saying it wasn't necessarily their goal to eliminate nudity, that I do think the judge went a little bit further than everybody was anticipating in this. So, we'll have to see if the city does come back with a plan that still does include some kind of nudity, if that will be enough for the neighbors suing, or if this really will not end until everyone has to wear their clothes at Denny Blaine Park.
Seattle Times reporter David Kroman has been following the story of Denny Blaine. I really appreciate your time today, David, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. This show is only possible because listeners support us. If you're able to give right now, please check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.